Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think it's really important for all of us to take a step back and recognize what's really happening here. This is another example of the Republican majority's efforts to continue to demonize immigrants. That's what this hearing is about. The hearings that we've been having on this subcommittee haven't been focused on leading us to a solution or finding bipartisan compromise. Unfortunately, the hearings that this subcommittee has been having have focused on trying to paint the picture for the American people that immigrants should be feared, immigrants should be hated, immigrants are bad, when we know that the contrary is true. And I think it's really important for us to acknowledge some truths if we are going to find a solution, because we absolutely do need a solution to this very significant domestic challenge. Immigrants make our country better. I mean, one of our, Ms. Egrov, you're an example of immigrants improving our country, adding to this country. Our ranking member is another perfect example of that. The examples are all around us. They help our economy. They are part of the fabric of our nation and of our communities, and they represent a net positive to who we are as Americans. But another truth is that the status quo is absolutely unacceptable. And it should be unacceptable to all of us, whether we are Republicans or whether we are Democrats. I represent El Paso, Texas. My border community has seen some of the highest encounters with asylum seekers, with refugees, with people fleeing their homeland, trying to get to safety and security in hours. And I'm a third-generation El Pasoan. I'm the only member of this subcommittee and this committee who was born and raised on the border, raised her children on the border. I'm so proud to be a border resident. But I will tell you, my community has seen some significant challenges as a result of the really significant number of people who are fleeing their homeland. And I think it's important for us to recognize it's not just a US issue. We are seeing more people leaving their country across the globe than probably ever before, certainly in the Western Hemisphere. This is historic, at least in my recollection and for my generation. And the response to such a significant challenge shouldn't be to demonize immigrants, but it also shouldn't be to refuse to compromise. We have to compromise and come together if we are going to find the solution. And we should recognize the opportunity in this moment. We have 8 million unfilled jobs in the country. 8 million. We are not achieving all we could achieve as a country without immigrants, and we can't do it. Now, my Republican colleagues will point to H.R. 2, their border bill, as the solution. But guess what? Their border bill is a fantasy. And any of them who've taken the time to read it would recognize it. Any reporter who's taken the time to read it would recognize it. The fundamental component of H.R. 2, the Republican solution, is that Mexico will accept all migrants that we expel from our country. That's never happened. It will never happen. So while they continue to say, oh, we've got our solution, H.R. 2, it's a farce. It's a fig leaf to hide the fact that they bring no real solutions to the table on their own. I'd like to share with all of my colleagues on this dais that there is a solution. It's called the Dignity Act. It's the first bipartisan, comprehensive immigration reform bill that addresses the border and beyond. It lives up to our values without the egregious cruelty championed by many on the other side of the aisle. It provides legal protections for immigrants that are here, and it addresses the biggest challenge we have at the border, which is unfair to migrants. The status quo is unfair to migrants, unfair to federal law enforcement, unfair to border communities, unfair to receiving communities. It's time that Congress does its job and engages in bipartisan compromise and finds a real fix. And I encourage everyone to look at the Dignity Act. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Ms. Sparks.